Across the Margin.
Across the Margin podcast.
Welcome to Across the Margin, the podcast where we take you beyond the margin, behind the scenes of the online magazine and deeper into the stories. I'm your host, Michael Shields, and today we are going to talk about The Deuce, the HBO drama series created by David Simon and George Pelecanos. It's a show I love, and as many of you know who spend time at Across the Margin, we do talk film and television from time to time. And, it's a subject that lives there along with all the fiction, the poetry, the music, the art, the prose. And so I had the opportunity to talk to one of the actors from The Deuce. And his name's Gary Carr. He plays CC, one of the pimps on the show. He's a tremendous actor. So we'll feature that in a minute. But before we go too much further, I want to mention that Across the Margin, the podcast is part of the Osiris Podcast Network. Go to osirispod.com to check out a whole slew of amazing podcasts over there. Couldn't be prouder to feature this podcast along that whole grouping. They do have 3 new podcasts I want to point out. One is a comedy podcast. It's called Amigos with Mike Finioa. Mike, if I just butchered your last name, I apologize. But your podcast is hilarious. Really checking it out. There's also Alternate Roots with Jesse Jarno. This one kind of digs into and shines a light on music that you won't find on Spotify. So it's a great place for discovery and to come upon some new and really, really interesting and cool music. And then another one they just premiered, which is just getting going, but it's going to be awesome as it moves forward, is the Relics Radio Hour. It's got the backing of Relics. It's with music producer Jesse Lauder. I can only imagine they're going to feature a whole bevy of just amazing guests and music conversations. So check those out. Go to osirispod.com. And so, yes, The Deuce. It's a show about the legalization and the ensuing rise of the porn industry in the 1970s. It features a brilliant ensemble cast featuring James Franco, Maggie Gyllenhaal, Gary Carr, as I mentioned, Michael Rispoli, Method Man's in there, Black Thought as well from The Roots. That's just to name a few. It's that the cast is just so incredible. The Deuce is a show I find it fascinating, relevant, wholly entertaining. I believe it's also criminally underrated. I don't hear enough people talking about it, and that's another reason I'm so excited to talk about it. It's a show. It isn't merely chronicling a time period when the sex trade comes into the mainstream and porn becomes popular. It's layered and deep and delves into capitalism in America, gentrification in New York, corruption in the justice system, and just a whole deal more. So I did, as I mentioned, I got to talk to Gary Carr about some of the themes present in the show and learn more about it. Gary's an incredible actor. You can see him. He plays Jack Ross in Downton Abbey as well. He's in a great show that's flying under the radar a little bit. I think over here, it's a BBC show called Death and Paradise. It's awesome, but he's a tremendous actor, and just he has some great insight. His character is just a fascinating kind of like a deeper thinking pimp, and he's really his role in the show is completely interesting. So it was a pleasure to talk to him. It was absolutely insightful, and I just want to dive into it. Here is my interview with Gary Carr.
I can. Gary, you got me?
Oh, hi, Michael. Hi. Nice to
Hey, thank you for taking the time. I appreciate you being on the podcast, and brilliant work as CC. Truly good stuff.
Oh, thanks a lot. Thank you. I appreciate that.
Awesome. So let's dive in. I know we're on the clock here, but so all of the pimps in the Deuce, and your character CC particularly, provide deep insight into the psychology between pimps and their girls. It's what I believe a more complex relationship than many would reason. Can you speak some about what the Deuce conveys about this relationship between the pimps and their girls?
Sure. I think the first thing it does is it basically highlights a lot of stuff that we very rarely see elsewhere. When these people such as pimps and prostitutes are being portrayed in TV and media. So it definitely gives, I think, a wider view than we've seen before, but also it humanizes them, first of all, like as subjects. I think it's really clear to see just off the page, off the paper, with characters like Cece and Laurie, that they are complex characters. They're very human for that reason as well. And also I think one thing that's really interesting in the Deuce, where a lot of the women are concerned. I think there was this idea a long time ago, or for a long time, or even now, that like a lot of women who do sex work are lacking in agency.
Absolutely.
Or are doing it under some type of force or against their will. But that from I think episode 1 of season 1, we see that isn't the case with Laurie and Cece.
Yeah, you absolutely. You see how shrewd and even driven they are. It's amazing.
Yeah, exactly. And there are bumps along the way, and there are definitely things that he feels he needs to teach her. I mean, it's a new environment in the sense that it's New York City, and it's not like her home. But other than that, I mean, yeah, they are as a team very shrewd. And I think me and Emily, like we recognize that in the characters very early on, and definitely try and I feel like we roll as a team very much Cece and Laurie rather than like Cece on his own, Laurie on his own, Laurie on her own. It's like I don't know if I answered your question, but
no,
I think that the Deuce definitely highlights that them as a partnership and as a team, and they have a shared ambition and vision of like what their lives will be together and as a duo, as a partnership.
Absolutely, and you're talking about the partnership. What I also find fascinating is the unity found between the workers, like all across the board, that kind of dwell in society's margins. It's got to be captivating to be a part of that unfolding integration of the New York underworld of the 70s. It's the whole group's kind of like a team in a cool way.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, you touched on the point that's very important. They are definitely, again, still today, marginalized people.
Yeah.
It's again, I love the show for that because. One thing people always say when they see the show is like, I'm really rooting for all these characters, and it would be the pimps and the prostitutes, and you think, yeah, of course, why not? Because I want them to win as well. You want these people to win. They're doing their best to just survive and live. And I feel like you can really approach the characters without judgment as well.
Absolutely, do a great job. You are not. It's the filmmaking, the writing, the acting. You're not. It's not a judgmental thing on it. It allows you to sympathize with them and understand them. It's great.
Sure, and empathize as well. Definitely. Because even like, exactly. I think it already does come from the writing first. It's all just so detailed and clear, and it's on the page.
Yeah.
And then I think I speak for everyone when like with our performances, we just none of us have any judgment towards our characters or each other unless it's written so.
Purposeful. Yeah.
It's just. Yeah, it's weird to say because I'm in it, but like I really do love this show. I'm a fan of
I bet. Yeah, you're allowed to love something you're in. It's each and every episode. I grasp how great it was.
This is a show I would definitely like full on watch if I wasn't a part of it.
If you weren't even a part of it, absolutely. Let me ask you a bigger picture question because I'm just I think about everything that Dave and George are trying to say, and all the other writers are trying to say about 1970s New York, or even more importantly, America and capitalism and bigger picture things like that. What do you think they're trying to, some of the ideas they're trying to present through the Deuce?
Well, one thing I always thought, well, I think it's a through line throughout all of their work, but like they're definitely highlighting corruption. That's something that comes through very clear. Also, the fact that how money, sex, and power are all pretty much the driving forces behind a lot of the progression that happens in society in some areas. Also, pop culture specifically, they're definitely highlighting how sex is a major part of pop culture and how it really did just like, I'd say, change. Well, definitely the world of like adult entertainment, but like pop culture across the board. I mean, it seeps into everything. So many different aspects of from music to music video to commercials, to every advertising, everything.
We actually see it in this show. I mean, coming into the mainstream at the exact moment that the sex trade comes into the mainstream. It's really fascinating in that way.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, the thing about the show as well, I think it's great because I don't know how it was marketed or how it's still being marketed, but like, I know a lot of people were like, we're going to see some porn,
Yeah.
Or, I mean, you do see some of that, but it's not. Sure. That's not completely the show. I mean, David. Yeah. They always reflect the times, or if they've chosen a time period, they're very detailed and thorough about, the world that they're speaking about, and so, and trying to like convey and stuff, so and represent. So
I can also see a lot of like these seeds of gentrification kind of planted in New York in the Deuce, and it to me it's exemplified in how the pimps are somewhat being left behind and kind of pushed out of what is their game a little bit. That feels very important to me and super relevant today.
Definitely. It's funny because that was always, I think, I always approached it like this as well. I mean, the thing about the way I see it, like if you are a pimp, it's like I think you're always thinking how you're going to survive tomorrow. I mean, you could do like very well and like have enough money that like you're really flush. But I mean, the world is always, especially at that time, the world was changing drastically, and I think. From episode 1 of season 1, I always had that thought pattern. I was like, things are moving fast. Things are changing so much in terms of the sex trade, and I was always curious to see like how CC would expand or how he would like survive that. Whether it meant changing profession but still staying like in the sex trade, or I don't know.
Well, I guess that's kind of where we're going, and what I want to ask is what do you feel about what can we. I don't want to give too much away, but what can we expect from CC and the Deuce in season 2? It seems like CC's striving to adapt in this changing landscape, and one thing about him is he's a deep thinking pimp as well. It's he's really trying to figure it all out.
Oh, cool! Yeah, I think so.
No question.
I think but again, it's a weird question to answer without. Trying to give stuff away, but I think we see. I think I gave you this answer last time. Like we just see him trying to survive. And like you said, like everything you said, try to survive and adapt. But also, I would say like it's difficult for him. It's like I said, everything's moving really fast, and he's not. It's not like he's like an inside player. He's really just like trying to figure it all out, like you said, and
you can see.
I think that's really great to watch and to play as well. Like
I bet. You can see him talking to Candy in episode 1 of the season, and she's kind of excluding him in one thing, and she's like, you're like Candy, shouldn't you arrange the shit through me? Kind of trying to still practice his old ways in this new game, and it's really fascinating to watch, which is really cool. How about this cast you work with? I mean, working from anyone from Franco, Maggie, Black Thought, Meth, even you have that great scene with Clark Peters. It's gonna be special working with this cast.
Oh my god, yeah, of course. Like, I mean, like, look, like I said earlier, when I was like, I would be a massive fan of this show if I wasn't in it. For that reason as well.
That reason,
the cast are amazing. Also, though, like I need to say though, like as people though, I think that's really important for me. And like one thing that's been highlighted, like crew always say, like it's crazy that this whole cast happens to be just made up of really brilliant people first, like really, I can't think of one person where I'm like, oh gosh, there's an ego or an issue. It's just like it's the most like chilled, great set of people and great set and environment and vibe as well. It's a really
awesome.
great project, yeah, man.
That's so cool to hear. I'm glad to hear everybody. I mean, because it is such a beautiful collaborative effort, and from the writing onto the acting and the whole thing. So, hey, again, thank you for taking the time, man. I honestly, not only I love the show, your character is someone who really stands out for me, and it's an amazing performance. So, thank you again. I really appreciate talking.
No, I super appreciate that. Thank you, man. You too.
Awesome.
All the best.
Take care. Thanks, Gary.
Take care.
Yeah.
Bye.
Bye.
Sometimes I feel so happy. Sometimes I feel so sad.
Well, that was cool. It was great to talk to Gary, and thank you, Gary, for that. Thank you, and also Alyssa and Courtney from HBO. I appreciate you setting it up. I was supposed to sit down with Gary face-to-face here in New York, but his press day changed. I happened to be on vacation when it occurred, and everyone still made it happen for me, which is cool. We just did a phone call. But I think you can see from that conversation the depth that you find in the Deuce, which is pretty remarkable. It's also not surprising. I mean, you have to remember that this is a David Simon production, the man behind The Wire, Treme, and just the depth that you found in those shows, and the socially conscious topics that were discussed, and you know, the breakdowns of the criminal systems, and just some of the ills that occur in America. This is another one of his vehicles where he uses these storylines to kind of divulge some of the things that some problems that we're all facing every day. So I did get a chance to I got a hold of some screeners. I got to see the first 4 episodes of season 2, and I'm not going to spoil anything here, but there are reasons to be excited. It continues in its grandeur. It's excellent. A couple things to note. It does about a 5-year time jump, and while things are so familiar, a lot has changed, and it's fun to see those changes and how the characters grew in the meantime. It starts off with this really, really dope 2-minute opening shot that follows Candy into this new world that is season 2, and it's just a really cool opening shot, which just already had me salivating for the whole second season. Right away, you find the pimps struggling to hold on as the game changes. Something me and Gary were just talking about, you can see that they're starting to address more inequalities that even exist today, and payments. The inequalities in payments due to sex and race that we're still dealing with. It's awesome. And one thing that really needs to be pointed out is Maggie Gyllenhaal's performance, and you'll see it's just remarkable. It's Emmy worthy. So is the show in general. It needs to be discussed in that way as an Emmy contender. But her character's growth, I keep referring to her as Candy, but I think it's time we call her Eileen. In this season, it seems like this season's really, really all about her, and a lot of the struggle that was in season 1 set up the things that her journey in season 2. So that is awesome. Check out The Deuce. It starts this Sunday and will be the next, I believe, 8 episodes, the next 8 Sundays. So a little bit of a terse episode relatively for Across the Margin podcast, but I have a doozy on deck. We're about to hit episode 50, and that'll be coming your way probably next week. So brace yourself for that, and thank you so very much for taking another trip with me beyond the margin.
Osiris. This podcast is In the Loop, the Legion of Osiris podcasts. Osiris is creating a community that connects people like you with live experiences and podcasts about artists and topics you love. Get in the loop at osirispod.com.
Well, I say love, oh love, can it love? say love, oh love, oh careless love, love, please tell me what have I done for you to hurt me all in fun? Well, you know that I once was blind, but now I see. I say that I once was blind, but now I see. Well, you know I once was blind, but I'm so glad I see that old love has made a fool of me. Well, you know what? A big fool I have been. Let me say what? A big fool I have been. Let me say what? Oh, what a big fool that I have been. But I'd be one all over again. Well, you know, if I could like a morning dove. Well, if I could like a morning dove. Well, if I could moan, if I could moan like a morning dove, you know I'd moan for everyone in love. That's why I said love, oh, love, careless love. Whoa, I say love.